Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel. I'm your host, Sam, and you are in the control room. This is the first time in a long time, and it might be the first time for some of you ever. So, welcome, and thank you so much for checking out the channel. You will probably have noticed that most of the content before this has been focused purely on Quantum Leap or sci-fi fantasy. There's been a little bit of stuff here and there that might have gone outside of that realm, but for the most part, that's kind of what Fate's Wide Wheel has done. And it started off as a Quantum Leap podcast geared towards the classic version of Quantum Leap. Indeed, this was years before the Quantum Leap reboot, if you want to call it that, came on the air. And then, of course, when that began airing on NBC, we started covering that as well on a weekly basis. And then we started having guests from the show, writers, producers, actors, which was a blast. And I had so much fun getting to do that. Then, with the cancellation of the series, some personal things that happened, some things that happened even within the fandom, some loss and tragedy. It really just got a little bit more difficult to produce content, for lack of a better word. And plus, just in my own personal life, I started to get very busy. I do work as an actor in the Chicagoland area. On top of that, I do some marketing work for a friendly local game store. So with that and two kids and everything else in life, I hadn't had a lot of time to produce anything. And that made me kind of sad. And there were a number of things that I thought about going back to, a number of things that I really wanted to do and just didn't get the opportunity to do. A couple of videos that I made and actually didn't release, though I still may, and just wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. But that all changed because today I got something in the mail and I was super excited about that. And it was something that I'd pre-ordered a while back. And it's a film that I first saw about 30 years ago. And I thought to myself, what an opportunity here to do a little bit of an unboxing, a little bit of an overview, and talk about something that I love that is completely different, really, from just about anything else that we've ever discussed on the channel before. So for those of you returning, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. For those of you checking it out for the first time, welcome. Thank you. I hope this is going to be a fun journey. I intend on doing more things like this in the future and focusing on a wide variety of stuff. It's one of the reasons why I picked the title Fate's Wide Wheel for the podcast. I always thought that the opportunity to go beyond what we initially sought to cover was going to be important. And now, here I am almost 8 years later and getting the opportunity to do just that. So to everyone that's followed along, to everyone that's appeared on the show, helped out in any capacity whatsoever, I really just want to say that I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for the support over the years. Even when I wasn't on, anyone who's reached out in the meantime, whether it's been to just say, hi, how you doing? Hey, is there another episode coming? Are you still there? What's going on in your life? Or, hey, did you see that this movie was coming out? Or, hey, did you get the steelbook for this? Because I did. Which is awesome. And I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad that we've been able to kind of engender that and have a community that still keeps tabs, and yeah, I'm really grateful for that. So thank you all for that. To sometime collaborator JJ Lindell, I just wanted to say, hey, give him a shout out. Check out jjlindell.com. Check out his amazing art. I know he's been super busy. He's had a lot going on. He's been doing a lot of a lot of work and that sort of thing, and hasn't had an opportunity to come on here or to talk, but that's certainly something that we plan on doing in the future. We've had a few conversations here and there, sometimes just about our kids, but JJ's awesome, and I certainly encourage you to check out his work. Of course, you'll also see that there's a Fates Wide Wheel storefront there as well, so you can pick up merch related to Fates Wide Wheel and some of the great Quantum Leap posters that he created. So you can head over to fateswidewheel.com and check out any of that sort of stuff if you want to as well. But let's get to it. Let's get to what we're talking about today. I'm very excited about this. So as you can see, I am just a lover of cinema and of physical media. And when I was younger, I was introduced to a lot of classic, Hollywood films by way of my grandparents, and then westerns and spaghetti westerns by way of my dad. And I developed a love and appreciation for classic Hollywood films, kind of almost all on my own as well. And the period where that was kind of the most fertile, if you will, was around the time I was around 11 or 12 years old. I but I was exposed to Rebel Without a Cause for the first time. It was actually a double feature on the movie channel of Rebel Without a Cause and Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. And I just remember seeing those films, and it kind of tapped into something for me. Just rebellious youth, etc. And I really appreciated them, but it also instigated this desire to learn more about films from that era. Of course, watch the rest of James Dean's films, and then by way of that, all of a sudden I was watching Audrey Hepburn or Marilyn Monroe, or just spun out from there. Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, all of these kind of classic Hollywood film actors, and developed an appreciation for Charlie Chaplin. I think the Chaplin biopic with Robert Downey Jr. was big for that. Obviously, one year for Christmas, I got a bowler hat and a little mustache. Had to be very careful about that mustache. And I think that's not as funny now as it used to be. But I think that those kind of formative years leading up until I was around 13 or 14, as I was exposed to so many different types of films, and certainly things like Turner Classic Movies, American Movie Classics, playing these classic films just really gave me this love and appreciation for a lot of film. Now, at the same time, being a kid of the 80s, I was exposed far too young to films like Rambo and and other Arnold Schwarzenegger movies like Commando or Predator, or Jean-Claude Van Damme, Kickboxer, Bloodsport, etc. And I had a great love for martial arts films like that, action films, Lethal Weapon, and of course went through a Bruce Lee phase around the same time as all of this, really, because Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, had come out. Started taking Taekwondo with a friend of mine, which of course is Korean martial art, not Chinese, but that's beside the point. And through this love of kind of the Bruce Lee films, the action films, just classic film in general, I started to kind of seek out foreign films that which was not easy to do in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. It was certainly easier, but it was not a simple thing to do. And I remember walking into the video store. We were living in Gastonia, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Charlotte at the time. And there were a couple of video stores in town. And of course, you had your big ones like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. But there was a smaller mom and pop store that was right down the street from the high school that I attended, Ashbrook High School in Gastonia. And that mom and pop's kind of video store had some really cool stuff that the other video stores didn't have. It's actually where I also rented some of my first Doctor Who cassettes ever as well. Now, I was already into Doctor Who because I'd purchased VHS at Media Play and gotten some for Christmas, but they had some that I didn't have. And so I rented, for instance, the Dalek Invasion of the Earth. That's the first time that I had ever seen that, was by renting that double cassette from them. They also had an end cap, which was on the same rack as where they had their Doctor Who's of foreign films. But these weren't just any foreign films. These were Hong Kong foreign films. And at the time, I had probably seen in like some magazine somewhere something about John Woo. And I think John Woo had already been making the jump to the United States. I think at this point, Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme had already come out. But this would have been before like Face Off and films like that. So I had an idea of who he was, but there was this VHS there with this man on the cover. And I believe underneath it said like Hong Kong's answer to Clint Eastwood or something along those lines. And it was Chow Yun Fat. And I thought he just looked so cool on the cover of this VHS. I flipped it over and I'm reading about it and I'm thinking like, this sounds incredible. I think I have to rent this. And I kid you not, I watched it like 2 or 3 times because I was just blown away by it. And the opening scene, of course the climax in the hospital. There's so much about this film to love in terms of being a fan of action sequences, and especially that sort of bullet ballet that is a term that's been popularized over the years. And I was just completely enthralled with the story as well, because the story was very, very interesting. You have a undercover police officer. You have kind of a somewhat rebellious police officer who's always trying to do the right thing. There's all sorts of themes of trust and betrayal, and what is right and what is wrong. What are the lengths to which you can go to do the right thing, that sort of thing. And it was a really really wonderful, I think, moment in my own cultivation of what I appreciated about film and storytelling, and just that visual appeal that was created by John Woo with this film. And I think that the cast across the board is great. Of course, you've got Chow Yun Fat, you've got Tony Leung Chu Wai, Anthony Wong. There's just this really wonderful cast come together. Now, this was released in 1992, and I saw it, like I said, around 1995. There was a VHS that had made its way over, and I believe the VHS that I saw was dubbed. I saw the dub first. Now, one thing to realize about a lot of films made in Hong Kong at the time, and going way back when sound was first introduced, is that these films, sound was added in post. So it mattered a little less which soundtrack you listened to, as far as I was concerned. Although obviously dubs historically were not always great on films like these, but the hard boiled dub was pretty good. It certainly was good enough for a 14-year-old watching this movie for the first time. Later on, I would pick up the Criterion Collection edition of Hard Boiled, which I'll show you here in a second. And that was the way that I owned the film for a long time, was on this DVD. And I watched that just many many times, and it had some great superb special features on there, as well as Criterion Collections want to do. But what we're here to talk about today, of course, is the brand new Shout Factory 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray edition of Hard Boiled. Chow Yun Fat there on the cover. I'm super, super excited about this. This is something that has been a long time coming for a lot of folks. Of course, this has been released numerous times over the years, but it's been kind of missing in action for the past 15 years or so. Dragon Dynasty did a great double disc set of it. But other than that, which didn't necessarily have upgraded picture quality, it was still kind of just the same scratchy transfer that we've been used to. And it was getting released in the East, but it just wasn't being released over in the West. Now, a lot of fans, especially fans who came to the genre within the past 15 years, didn't have as easy access to this film. So the fact that now we've got it, since Shout acquired the Golden Princess catalog and is producing these movies, and we're going to see Better Tomorrow, we're going to see The Killer, we're going to see a lot of these classic Chow Yun Fat and John Woo movies. Better Tomorrow, but yeah, anyway, I'm super super excited about this film especially, and I'm so excited to be able to have it on 4K. I can't wait to take a look at it and see the picture. I'm certainly going to talk about that in a little bit, but before we get into all of that, I figure I will get this thing unboxed right now. It's still in the shrink wrap, as you can see. I haven't actually removed it from the shrink wrap yet. This, again, is a part of their Hong Kong Cinema Classics series. This is volume 17. The first few volumes were actually released in a box set, a Jet Li box set. They've released numerous other titles since then. I actually have a few of them over here behind me. They're not super easy to get to right now, so I'm not going to try and grab them. But Shout has done a really wonderful job with these, and they've done a wonderful job producing quite a few of my favorite releases recently. In fact, I actually have still sealed over here, for instance, their Shaw Brothers Classics. This is volume 5. They're up to volume 7 now. But those are great. A great selection of like martial arts and wuxia films, which we'll certainly talk about at some point on the channel. But Hard Boiled is what we're talking about today. Again, we've got this beautiful sturdy case here. Chow Yun Fat holding the shotgun on the front cover. Looks really great with the green. Not a color that I've actually associated a lot with Hard Boiled in the past. Usually for like the VHS covers, we're getting a lot of like blues and reds and things like that, some whites, etc. So seeing the yellow and the green is definitely a little bit new, but apropos in a lot of ways, which will become clear if you've seen the film before or haven't. We got lots of great special features on here. In fact, I'm going to just take a moment here. I'll tell you about these. So disc 1 is our 4K Ultra HD, which includes the feature film, a 4K scan from the original camera negative presented in Dolby Vision, which is awesome. We got optional English subtitles newly translated for this release, a new audio commentary with director John Woo and film journalist Drew Taylor. That should be awesome. New audio commentary with film historian Frank Jing. Frank is awesome. I don't know if you've heard any of his audio commentaries before or not. They tend to be mile a minute, even faster than when I speak, but they're very informative, fantastic, really wonderful commentaries, and I enjoy them quite a bit. Also, another audio commentary with John Woo, producer Terrence Chang, filmmaker Roger Avery, and critic Dave Kerr, recorded by the Criterion Collection. I recognize that one. Then we have disc 2, which is a Blu-ray of the feature film. Also, of course, includes the 4K scan, all those audio commentaries, as mentioned before. And then we get disc 3, which is our special features on a Blu-ray. We've got a new one called Violent Night, interview with John Woo. A new one called Boiling Over, interview with actor Anthony Wong. New No Time for Failure, interview with Terrence Chang. A new Hard to Resist, interview with screenwriter Gordon Chan. Boiled to Perfection, interview with screenwriter Chong Hong-koo. Body Count Blues, interview with composer Michael Gibbs. Hong Kong Confidential, Inside Hard Boiled with author Grady Hendrix. Gung Fu Fever, featuring an interview with author Leon Hunt. Chewing the Fat, interview with academic Lin Fang. And Deleted and Extended Scenes, Trailers, and Image Gallery. Every single one of those features, with the exception, of course, of the Deleted, Extended Scenes, Trailers, Image Gallery, they're all new. Which is incredible, fantastic. And we also get a 52-page booklet with 4 expert essays and extensive art. Amazing. I'm just cannot wait. Now, Chow Yun-fat, of course, for a time, one of my favorite actors. It still is, but certainly someone that I just appreciated, wanted to see anything that he had done. Certainly, most of us in the West, he was kind of cemented as a popular star with his performance in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which he's superb in, but it's actually in some ways a very different role than I think a lot of people had been familiar with him prior to, because he, of course, was famous for a lot of these sort of, gunfighting, bullet ballet type films with John Woo in Hong Kong. Also, a lot of dramas. He had done a lot of romantic stories. He'd been on a soap opera, I believe, before he kind of made the jump to film. Became popular with the first Better Tomorrow film. But then Hard Boiled and The Killer certainly kind of really propelled him to a whole new status. And he made a number of films in Hong Kong before making the jump to the United States as well, with movies like The Corruptor and The Replacement Killers. With Mira Sorvino and Mark Wahlberg, respectively. So we're going to go ahead and take this out. Now, first we have, there it is. That is the classic cover right there that I am used to. Yeah. Chow Yun-fat, as a cop, he has brains, brawn, and an instinct to kill. That is a late 80s, early 90s tag, if I have ever seen one. And then, of course, within we have our beautiful booklet with full art there, but again, beautiful, solid box, very, very nice. And then here's our booklet. We'll take a quick little flip through this, not going to stop on every page by any means, but nice little table of contents there, some excellent images, just beautiful stuff. I love the writing that they put together. They put together really great essays. It's just wonderful. It's lovely to see some stuff here on the other stars of the film. It would be very easy to just focus purely on Chow Yun-fat, one of the most famous images from the film right there. But the cast is incredible, and Tony Leung is just incredible in it as well. So really wonderful booklet there. And then, of course, we have our discs. In here, we do not have a reversible cover. They have on some of their films done reversible covers, but this one, of course, just stands with its standard art. So there you have it. There's our unboxing listing of all of the other extras and stuff, of course, again, on the back. Just lovely. So happy with this presentation for so many reasons, and I cannot wait to watch this. It's been quite a while since I've seen it, so I'm going to go away. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about Hard Boiled. It's not going to be an exhaustive review. In fact, if you've been a fan of the channel, if you've watched other reviews, especially any of the Quantum Leap reviews, you know that sometimes those reviews have literally been longer than the episode. Clocking in at 128 minutes, I can promise you I will not speak for longer than 2 hours and 8 minutes. I intend to speak for much less than that, to just talk a little bit about the film, what I thought about presentation of the film. Again, this is something that I've really wanted to do for a very, very long time and haven't had the opportunity to do as much of. Certainly talked about the Blu-ray release of Quantum Leap season 1 at one point, but this is a chance for me to do something that I really love, and hopefully you will too. And it's an interesting film to pick. I know it's probably not necessarily what you were expecting, but I have a lot of other films in mind for the future. This is just kind of where I was at right now, and I figured, let's do it. So I'm going to go away. I'm going to watch Hard Boiled, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So stay tuned. All right, and I am back. I have just finished watching Hard Boiled in 4K. I checked out some of the supplemental features, listened to bits and pieces of the audio commentaries, and let's just start right off by saying this film has absolutely never looked better in any capacity that I've ever seen it. Someone who watched it on VHS 30 years ago, owned the Criterion Collection DVD, and had a friend, I believe, that had the Dragon Dynasty version of it on DVD as well. I never saw the Blu-ray, but from what I gather, it was just an upscaled version of the DVD, so the quality wasn't going to be miles beyond that. But this 4K is absolutely incredible. I don't think the film has ever looked better. Everything, the colors, especially at the beginning when you're seeing so many of the neon lights and you're in the jazz bar and then on the way to the tea house, there is just an incredible depth of color. Everything looks so beautiful and bright and lush and vibrant in a way that I've never seen it look before. Skin tones look incredible. The texture, everything about the depth of the field is just so incredible. Right up until the shootout in the hospital, when you have so much smoke and flame and fire and everything, there's just this again, depth to the picture. It's three-dimensional. It's there. It's incredible. It looks gorgeous. There's obviously some defects and limitations just of the source material, the way that the film was shot. There's certainly some things that kind of like pop up every once in a while where you say like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. The slow-mo or the zoom in or this or that just takes you a little away from that pristine picture that you get in other certain areas, but that is absolutely not a result of the restoration. The restoration is phenomenal, and I think that overall the picture just looks out of this world. There's a fine grain to the film. Again, just so much texture, so much depth, so much vibrancy, just unlike anything that I've ever seen. Can't really see any sort of DNR here. Nobody looks waxy. Nobody looks scrubbed by any measure. There is texture. There's grit. There's it just, you can feel it. You can just feel it, and it's gorgeous. The film looks absolutely incredible, to the point where you're noticing things on a first watch that you would have taken 4, 5, 6, 7 watches before to notice, like strings pulling guys when they're being shot or something like that. The film, the subtitles look great. I didn't listen to the dub, but I'm pretty sure it's just the old dub. I don't think that they have supplied a new dub for this film or anything. Certainly noticed some differences with the subtitles. I thought that they were handled really, really well. There was an elegance to them. Most of the changes were minor from what I could notice, but there were definitely some lines that just hit a little bit harder. So I really appreciated the new translations, the new subtitles from Shout Factory. I'll be interested to know what Arrow Films over in the UK does with the movie, because they're going to be releasing it, I believe, sometime early next year. And physical media freak that I am, I will probably purchase it. So maybe I'll make a comparison video. But the film itself just holds up so well, and I found myself taking it in a very different way. It's interesting because obviously this film at times, I know, has garnered some critiques for like gratuitous violence or being over the top. And as someone who, in my own personal life is not a fan of firearms, is not a fan of violence in any form, I can still appreciate this film. And I think one of the things that I would almost offer as a counterpoint to some of those critiques that have been made in the long past is that the film handles the violence with a certain weightiness. None of this feels superfluous. None of it feels gratuitous. It asks these big questions about morality, you know, good versus evil, loyalty, betrayal, um, truth. And I think in the midst of that, the backdrop of all of this violence that plays out over the course of the film, it really kind of forces you to ask some tough questions of your heroes, if you will. And I think that, obviously Tequila is played by Chow Yun-fat. Um, and Tony Leung's character, whose name is escaping me right now, even though we hear it a million times, as Alan, um, is is also someone that we have to ask ourselves frequently. Is this a good person? And I'm interested to know what other people think about the film, in general, because it's very easy to just sit down and watch this as an action film, and that's that. But there are a lot of really great questions that I think the film raises, and I think that the violence in the film kind of urges you to ask some of those questions as well. The final scene, the incredibly long gun battle that takes place in the hospital. You're seeing innocent people become victims of this violence, and I think that there's certainly elements of that feel all too real in the world in which we live, and I think can be uncomfortable for some viewers, and certainly for me. I was thinking about those things as I was watching the movie, which I think to me is a sign of a good film, because it allows me to ask questions, and recontextualizing the film in 2025 as compared to when I first saw it in 1994, 95, somewhere around there. It was fascinating for me, and I felt as though I was able to ask different questions as a result of seeing the film now than I was, as a teenager. And that's not just because of age, that's also because of the world in which we live today. So the film, you could just, again, you can turn your brain off, watch it as an action film and enjoy it. But I think that there's some richly layered portraits of the characters here and some of the situations that they find themselves in. And I think that, the dichotomy between Tequila and Alan's character, also, of course, Johnny Wong's character, the Mad Dog character, there's Uncle Hoy's character. I mean, there's so many kind of dynamics at play here, and you're seeing these criminals and criminals pitted against criminals, and it's almost like, well, these are the good bad guys and these are the bad guys. And then you're seeing the cops, and it's like, okay, well, obviously Tequila has made some choices that have resulted in some questionable outcomes, but he is the good guy here, right? And ultimately, I mean, yes, he is. I mean, I think that Tequila is a heroic figure, and certainly by the end of the film, he fits very well into the mold that John Woo wanted him to fit into, as far as being that Steve McQueen, that Dirty Harry-esque character, and Bullet, Dirty Harry, and I think that works really, really well for the character. But ultimately, the feeling that I got left with, and the character that I was drawn to, as well, of course, was Alan, because I think that there's something incredibly powerful about a character who is so deep, living this lie that he has to live, and just hoping that the ends justify the means. And I think that his journey and his arc through the film is a fascinating one. And Chow Yun-fat is still the king of cool, though, and it is hard to say anything to the contrary about that. The character of Tequila is awesome right from the moment we are introduced, as he's pouring a tequila and soda drink, and he throws it back and then blows smoke out. Lots of cigarettes smoked in this film. And then begins playing jazz. The score for the film, boy, really helps to set a tone. I love the jazz, the way that the jazz music is used. Michael Gibbs, the composer for the film, did a wonderful job with that. And then we also get some more, I don't want to say stereotypical, because again, at the time this film was made, 1991, these scores were still, I think, looking back on like a Lethal Weapon, right? Which Michael Kamen and Eric Clapton collaborated on with those films, and I think that that kind of template that a film like that sort of set up, really played throughout the 80s and early 90s with action films. And I'm not saying that Hard Boiled borrows from that necessarily, but I do think that there are some musical cues that feel very much within that genre. And then they're kind of juxtaposed against some of these more jazzier moments. It's very moody jazz. I don't want you to think that this is like, you know, big band jazz, swing jazz, or anything like that. But it's a very moody jazz soundtrack, and it works really, really well. And I think that it's cool too that Tequila plays jazz in a band, and of course John Woo, the director of the film, also acts in the film as sort of Tequila's sort of mentor figure who owns and runs the jazz bar that Tequila plays at, and they have a few scenes together that are really wonderful moments that help kind of progress that character work, especially for Tequila and his arc, and from where he begins to where he ends up. So just a really wonderful film overall, one that I love, and found myself as I was watching it this time around, being so glad that I was returning to it, because it's a film that I've not seen in quite some time, quite honestly. And coming back to it and watching it and getting such a beautiful presentation in 4K with the Dolby Vision just absolutely blew me away. For 128 minutes, I was just completely in the world of the film. I wasn't checking my phone, I wasn't checking the computer, I wasn't even taking notes. I was just immersing myself in the movie and enjoying the movie. It's incredible how quickly the first hour of the film just flies by, and then of course that second hour, which you're pretty much in the hospital for the entire second half of the film. Just how much tension is created, and there are some slower moments. There's some really wonderful character bonding moments between Alan and Tequila. There's some moments of whimsy and comedy. There's some really innovative moments as far as the gunfights go, and the action goes, which is really cool to see. Um, there's some really wonderful moments that again are making you ask questions of these characters and these bad guys, and especially with the character of Mad Dog, who's a very interesting character throughout the course of the film, but in particular in the hospital shootout, becomes even more interesting, I think, in a lot of ways, and you discover more layers to his character, which is really cool. So Hard Boiled is again just one of my favorite action films of the genre, one that I had seen quite a number of times up until maybe about 2005, 2006. Hadn't really seen it in probably about 19 years. But being able to come back to it, watch it again, take it in this way, just blew me away. And I'm such a fan of what Shout has done with the film. Let's talk a little bit about the extras. I didn't listen to the full length audio commentaries, but I tried to listen to bits and pieces of each of them. I didn't get to watch all of the special features documentaries because there's a lot of stuff on that disc. But I definitely checked out bits and pieces just to get a taste of it, so I could kind of talk a little bit about it. Commentaries are awesome. The new commentary with John Woo, and excuse me, I want to make sure I get this right. Drew Taylor is fantastic. Woo talks at length about the genesis of the film, the actors, setting up shots, the conditions under which certain things were shot. He has no bones about talking about some of the gripes and grumbles of cast and crew along the way. It's a very naked and honest telling of the film. And granted, he's telling these stories over 30 years later, and he's not a young man, right? He's his late 70s, I believe, at this point, but I think the way that he tells these stories, and the way that he's relating this information is eminently listenable. And Drew Taylor sets him up really well, asks lots of great questions, and gets some great lengthy responses as they watch this film. From what I could tell, not much in the way of dead air. They were talking the whole time, and it was just great. It was just a great commentary, the parts that I listened to. And again, just getting to hear from Wu at length was very, very cool. The next audio commentary with Frank Jing was also great. I mean, again, someone that just has such an in-depth knowledge of film and Asian film, Hong Kong film in particular. Brings a lot to the table. There was, surprisingly, for someone who I'm used to just hearing rattle off details from start to finish of a film, there was, from when I dropped in and listened to parts of the commentary, there were actually some dead spots, if you will, which was surprising for him, because again, I'm used to him just talking wall to wall for 90 minutes to 2 hours. But he did let certain things breathe, certain scenes play, and then would kind of talk a little bit about those moments, which I thought was really cool and very interesting and different as well from the John Woo and Drew Taylor commentary, because that commentary again got very in depth, was not always scene specific, if you will. It was not always talking about exactly what was transpiring on screen. Some of it might have been, oh, this is why we did this, and then kind of wandered off in a different direction about the film, which was really great. Whereas Frank's was definitely more scene specific and talking very specifically about moments in the film and what was happening. And it's a great audio commentary in terms of providing you with some of that context, and he always does a great job of that. He does a really wonderful job of contextualizing films, and spends time early on, usually talking about the actors, the creative process, what where the film came from, basically, and then really kind of contextualizes certain scenes and certain bits of the film, which is great. The old commentary with John Woo, Terrence Chung, and Roger Avery and David Kerr, excuse me, for the Criterion Collection DVD, which I have owned for ages. I did not actually listen to, because I've listened to the Criterion Collection one. It's a great commentary. It's an awesome commentary, and it's really interesting to kind of have that as well as this new John Woo commentary, because they are different. And it's a different perspective in some ways, which is pretty cool. I'm sure some of the stories are the same in both, and there's probably some overlap here or there, but really cool opportunity to listen to two different time periods of John Woo reflecting on this film, because one would have been just a few years after the making of the film. The other is, again, over 30 years later, which is pretty cool. As far as the special features, Violent Night, the interview with John Woo, great. There's definitely some duplication, repetition, if you will, between the audio commentary and this, but it's a great 40-minute documentary, or interview rather, of Woo talking about the film, talking about where the genesis for the movie came from, which I thought was really interesting, very cool, talking about the violence in the streets in Hong Kong, that the imminent takeover in 1997, or handover rather, in 1997, was something that was on his mind, on a lot of folks' mind, that there had been an uptick in crime, violent crime in particular. Criminals had gotten very bold, and also he was seeing this Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, and just how that was affecting him personally, and actually kind of funneled its way into the story, and it's some really fascinating tidbits and conversation about the film overall, and just where he was in his creative process. A very, very good interview, without a doubt. The interview with Anthony Wong was fun, very relaxed, very laid back kind of interview. I enjoyed what I saw of it, and we'll certainly go back and finish the rest of it later. You get the idea. He doesn't look back at the film in this way that's just sort of like, oh, what an amazing, incredible film that I was a part of, and how lucky I am, and here's this story, and here's that story, and here's the night we all hung out at the bar. Instead, it's very much like, I'm an actor, this is a job, and this is what I do. And he really kind of gives you the impression that at that particular point in his career, and just in Hong Kong film industry in general, you were working all the time, to the point where he was literally shooting his scenes for Hard Boiled, and then he was getting in a car and going across town to a different studio to shoot scenes for another movie. So really fascinating stuff. Great stories from Anthony Wong. No Time for Failure, the interview with Terrence Chung, who's the writer. Really, really great stuff. Very erudite. It's in English. The Anthony Wong interview is not. The John Woo interview is also in English. But yeah, just great stuff. Talking a lot. There is again some overlap with the John Woo stuff, but hearing it from Terrence's perspective is pretty cool. Let's see here. Then we've got Boiled to Perfection, which is an interview with screenwriter Chung Hong Koo, and then we also have Hard to Resist interview with screenwriter Gordon Chan. Again, great interviews, some really wonderful perspectives on the film, the writing of the film, the creation of the film. You get the strong sense, not the strong sense, you are told pretty much up front multiple times that when they started shooting this film, there was no script, there was no story, they did not know where they were going at all, but that Wu felt an urge to get this film shot for a number of reasons, and so they just started off with the tea house scene, actually, and hearing about that and the stories about the tea house was very, very interesting. Some really wonderful stuff, and it just kind of, I think, drives home how important film can be, not only as a form of entertainment, as a form of art, but also just as a historical document. preserving this incredible historical tea house that was soon to be torn down on film was something that was important to them, and in doing so, they were able to create this incredible set piece for the film and beginning for the film. And also, a very sort of this emotional ignition for the character of Tequila as well, that carries us through with his through line. So really great stuff from both of them. Body Count Blues, with the interview with the aforementioned composer Michael Gibbs. Some really wonderful stuff there about the composition of the film, music, and setting the tone. Hong Kong Confidential, Inside Hardboiled, with author Grady Hendrix. Interesting thing about this is it's listed as new, but it looks like it may have actually been filmed for the Dragon Dynasty stuff, because it looks a little older. He actually holds up a Dragon Dynasty DVD at the beginning, but again, very erudite, really wonderful presentation. Very listenable without a doubt. So great stuff there from what I saw. Gung Fu Fever, interview with author Leon Hunt. Again, some excellent information about the film. And then finally, Chewing the Fat, interview with academic Ling Fong, excuse me. Lin was great. Listening to her talk about Chow Yun Fat, his career, in particular, the way that he'd been working so hard, making 10, 11, 12 movies a year, got to the point where he kind of was calling his own shots. It's like, I only want to work twice a year. I'll only work twice a year. But if John Woo called, he was there. And in the case of Hard Boiled, that was absolutely the case. So great stuff. And then we get the deleted scenes and extended cut stuff. Always wonderful to see what doesn't make the film, what hits the cutting room floor, question why it hits the cutting room floor, what would it have done if it was still in the movie. With a film like this, it's kind of easy to see why these scenes were trimmed or left out. The film, holds up really, really well. There are a couple of things that I think, had they still been in the film, they would have maybe been a little bit better connective tissue, because there's definitely some moments when we get through the first 45 minutes or so, and that 15 minutes or so before we get to the hospital. There's some things that kind of feel like something happened, and I don't know exactly what it was, but something's different here. And it doesn't need to be made explicit, which is why I don't think it's in the film, because it doesn't lose sight of what's the most important part of the film, which of course is Tequila and Alan, and their relationship, and their mission to kind of take down this gang, and Johnny Wong's gang. So yeah, just wonderful stuff. And then of course we also get the trailers, which is always interesting to see. The booklet, I've not had a chance to actually read anything in it yet, but I will definitely be doing that. I cannot wait to take a look, and kind of just get into all the information that is here in that booklet. But that's going to kind of wrap this one up. Hard Boiled, a John Woo film starring Chow Yun Fat and Tony Leung. Just absolutely blown away by this 4K transfer. It is, as far as I'm concerned, if you have any interest in this film whatsoever, even if you haven't seen it, this is an essential buy. This is absolutely, kind of, as far as I'm concerned, taking a Hong Kong film from 1991 and making it look as good as it is probably ever going to look. This has got to be the gold standard for that. So I'm super impressed with it. I can't wait to check out some of the more of the 4K stuff that I've picked up recently, and report back. In fact, let's see here. Do I have something next? Oh, well, here's one actually that I just watched the other day, which is Come Drink With Me. Another brilliant movie. I love this movie, and the 4K is exceptional. I actually also own Arrow's Blu-ray, which I did love a great deal, but the 4K is absolutely a worthy upgrade. So I'll just give you a short little review of that one. But this is just a brilliant package. I highly recommend it. It is kind of sold out right now, most places. I don't know if that means it's sold out, like limited edition, done and over with, or if it's just a temporary thing. I'm hoping that it's a temporary thing, because I do think that this is a package that if you want it, you should absolutely be able to get it and not have to pay, eBay prices or whatever. So keep an eye. Groove.com is actually the new Shout Factory store. Shout Factory's website is not actually selling anymore direct, so Groove is the way to go. So check that out if you want to pick this up, or of course you can check out any other online retailer. I know that like Diabolic and Orbit were experiencing some inventory issues with that. You can check out Grindhouse. Of course, this is some of the bigger stores. It looks like might have them as well. So if you want to head over to Amazon or whatever and check it out and see if they've got it, you could do that. So super excited again for John Woo's Hard Boiled 4K Ultra HD in this beautifully pointed set. So stay tuned for more from Fate's Wide Wheel. I will definitely be coming back soon, and I'm going to keep this up. This is kind of going to be a bit of the new format of the show. Certainly want to do some of the stuff that I used to do as well. We'll see what kind of interviews we can do. I have some thoughts and ideas about that, some different sorts of things than what we've done in the past. And that's just going to be the game going forward. So thank you all so much for sticking around here to the end. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. And I do have a Patreon, which I'll talk a little bit about more in the future. But no rush to head over there. In the meantime, if you could just like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, that would be awesome. But I'm going to get out of here now, and hopefully you're all running to your computer to pick up the copy of Hard Boiled so that you can check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and always leap responsibly.